Please, the next slide. Let's say we meet someday, and I hand over this test tube to you, and I say that there is a human DNA inside of it. And this test tube with the human DNA inside of it, in the second instant, I tell you that this is, storage device. It's like your USB, where you can, save your personal data, financial data, images, videos, everything actually. Not only this, under certain circumstances, you can also use this test tube as, with some PCR machine and DNA sequencing, as a computing device actually. So about an year back, when I came to know about this, so this was like a shock to me that, how could this possibly something biological can be used as a computing device? And I started learning it. I started learning this DNA computing and more about the DNA computers. After that, I learned it up to the extent that, I wrote even a paper actually on it. We did some research on it. We, introduced a model that how this can be used for the image security. So not only this, along with that, I have this list of the other topics that I wanted to learn actually. Okay, so it's like quantum computing. It's going to be a next big thing, like the AI. Soon it's coming. It's going to change everything again actually. Theories of gravity, something that I want to learn before I die. I started learning it. I learned it in such a way that last year I even taught this course as an elective to my undergrad students. So there's a lot actually. So there is a lot. The life is, something to learn. So, I have wishes and I wanted to learn, and I'm keep on learning it actually. So you could ask that, Javed, you are a math guy. How could you learn the things which does not seem any relevance to you actually? And what do I want to do is that I want to give you a precise recipe to systematically learn almost anything. So these are the sample of the things that I learned, but I'm sure that you must also have a wish to learn anything you like actually. Arts, music, history, some kind of science, some old philosophy, anything, absolutely anything. Okay, so how I was able to, learn all this stuff actually. Because, the Socrates is back in the city. The Socrates is reborn. The Socrates is back in the business actually. And that Socrates is the virtual Socrates. You can call that Socrates, the modern name for it is the large language models actually. Your platforms like Grok, ChatGPT and all that. You can turn them into a virtual Socratic teacher actually, and that's what I'm going to talk about actually. We have mixed views about, about the LLMs, that some people are fearful, as Professor Saab also said that it has goods, it has bad. Some people are fearful that the jobs are going to be gone. Some people are very happy. The students are happy. They have found a companion who can solve their problems. And some people have this pragmatic approach actually, that they understand that there is a good to it, but there is a lot of problems in it as well actually. Okay, and one thing that I would say that the actual Socrates and this Socrates, why they are different, because actual Socrates has this kind of view that I know one thing for a fact, that I know nothing actually. While this guy, this virtual Socrates, seems to have answer for everything, which is a problematic thing actually, that if you have answer for everything actually, Anyway, so before giving you that precise recipe that, how I learned all this stuff actually, and how you can apply it to learn things by yourself actually, let me ask a question. What do you think, what makes the Ivy League universities like Stanford, Harvard, and Princeton different from the institutes in this subcontinent of, this part of the subcontinent actually? Obviously, you're going to say they have a lot of funding and resources and the big labs and excellent faculty and excellent teacher and all that actually. And there is an element of truth to it. But, let's imagine that some day came and they don't have the funding, they don't have the resources, they don't have the big lab actually. So the only thing that they have is faculty and the students. Okay, so do you think that they are going to do better than us? I think that they are going to still do better than us actually. Why? Because they have rooted whatever the subject they are teaching, the sciences they are teaching into this the framework of liberal arts actually, okay, which is based on the two basic elements. One is the Socratic methods, like the art of asking the questions to know the answers, and the second important aspect of it is the trivium actually, okay. So say for example a physicist, when he or she is learning a physics actually, a subject in physics is not learning the physics, but learning the trivium of the physics actually. Someone is learning calculus, history, linear algebra, arts, music. They don't just learn these subjects, they learn the trivium of these subjects actually. So what is trivium actually? So can you move to the next slide. So the trivium is a basically cycle of learning actually. There are three important components to the trivium. So the first component is the grammar actually, and grammar does not mean the English grammar. The grammar means the grammar of that subject. For example, if you're learning calculus, the grammar is going to be like the functions and limits and derivatives. If you're learning the history, the grammar is going to be like the dates, the people, the events, all that. And the rhetoric, the logic, the next part of the cycle is logic, which is like if you take two facts, how can you produce a third fact out of it actually? In other words, why the things the way they are, why the definition, the theorem, the algorithm that you have that you want to learn the way it is actually. If you are, for example, thinking from historical perspective, that if an event occurred, why that event occurred actually? Why you have this history written in this particular way actually. Okay, so in other words, and a third important thing is something called the rhetoric actually. So the rhetoric is like, okay, now you learned this stuff, but now can you express it actually? The Freeman Dyson said something interesting. If you can't explain something, you don't understand it actually. Okay, so once you have ability to communicate it persuasively and also apply it actually. Another important aspect of the rhetoric is that you should be able to apply to solve actual problems. So this is where these Ivy League universities, this is the secret recipe basically that they follow to teach any science actually to their students actually. This is what they try to inculcate. And I'm really fond of it. So I just always wanted to thinking that, that how can I, so whenever I teach math, I try to do the math in this particular way actually. The question is, how can I combine with it, with the AI and, learn the things at my own without much resources and teachers and all that, anything that I wanted to learn actually. And I just gave you the list that, yes, please. Ugly slide. Okay, so, so here is the thing. The key thing is this. Often so it's like we have turned the AI into the answer machine actually, which is not like a good, use of it actually. So it's like you have access to this supercomputer, okay, but you are playing the solitaire or maybe Ludo with it actually. So it's not an optimist use of AI. I mean, if you are just using it to get your answers and get your essays and all that. What we can do is that we can turn the AI into a question machine actually. So something that asks the critical questions so that you can learn whatever you can learn actually. So here is the magic prompt that I have developed based on a lot of experience of it, and this is the prompt actually which starts the conversation. Okay, so whatever you want to learn, okay, start with this prompt, and this is going to start a conversation which is going to give you the learning experience, the best learning of any subject or any topic that you want to do. So here's a prompt. Act as a Socrates or a Socratic teacher or a Socratic tutor. Okay, guide me through the grammar, logic, and rhetoric of this concept. Now you just have to replace this concept by anything you like actually. So if you want to learn, calculus, just replace it with calculus. If you want to learn history, particular history, just replace it with history actually. If you want to learn music, just replace it with music. Anything that you want to do, this is going to start the conversation. But the key component is that don't give me answers. Ask questions. Ask questions to, help and build me learn myself actually. So this is something that, I have been using, and I said that I learned DNA computing through it. I learned a lot of, quantum computing through it. I learned a lot of physics. So there are a lot of things. I don't need, big professors at least to learn the foundations of any subject that I like actually. Okay. So here is a simple example. Okay, so for the purpose of the demonstration, that okay, I didn't choose a complicated topic. I just chose the fractions. Anapur, Matheo, Sur. Everyone, say, I gave this prompt to the to my large language model, like a ChatGPT that I use, and I said, act as a Socratic teacher and guide me through the grammar of the fraction actually. Okay, and it started the questions. It says that you see this stuff, you see this notation. Do you understand it actually? And I said no. Okay, then it started explaining actually, and I said I find it difficult to understand. Then it came up with what do you call a story. It says that let's imagine that you have a pizza. You want to have pizza someday. You split it into the 4 equal pieces and you ate the 3 pieces out of it. So the 3/4 is representing that thing, that you ate the 3 pieces out of the 4 pieces actually. So it gave this explanation. And then, so that I said, now I understood actually. So it's like having a conversation. Whatever you want to learn, just have conversation. You no more need what you call a tutor. This is a great thing. I mean, those who are sitting here, the parents actually, you don't have to spend thousands of rupees of, what do you call, money to give to the tutor actually. The tutor is sitting 24/7 with you, okay, in your phone, and just use it as, what do you call, as a Socratic tutor. Don't just ask for the answers, but have conversation and ask for the questions. And in the end, it just gave me that okay, the top number, the grammar of the fraction is that what does the top number is called and what does the bottom number is called. This is numerator, and this is what do you call denominator actually. So here is that what I want you to do tonight or today when you open your computer, your phone, and you want to learn something. Use this prompt that act as a Socratic tutor and teach me the grammar, logic, and rhetoric of that particular. You can be specific.